All right, so we're going to keep it tight tonight. Here's the issue. Mueller has Manafort at the nexus of two troubling coincidences. He alleges Manafort was meeting with Russians about taming U.S. policy in Ukraine. At the same time, he was running the Trump campaign, and at the same time, the party was softening its platform on helping Ukraine. The second, that the same faces and places being targeted by the campaign were targeted by Russian trolls. Is that thanks to Manafort giving poll data to bad guys? These questions come as the Senate considers the nomination of a new man to oversee the investigation, who says the findings should come out and that this is not a witch hunt. The special counsel still wants to question the president in person. His lawyers are standing in his way. And again, we have one tonight, the main man, Rudy Giuliani. Good to have you on Prime Time. Thank you for doing it.
How are you, Chris?
I'm doing well. It's good to see you.
Good to see you.
First, let's do some housekeeping. Have you been speaking, interchanging with the Mueller team? Is there any news about whether or not the president will answer more questions?
We told them 6 weeks ago that we would not take any more questions. That was at the time we found out a lot of very disturbing things about how they've conducted themselves, including one today that's devastating to Mueller. And basically, you know, destroying the struck 19,000 texts that were all done during the period of time of the Mueller investigation. Every single one of his text messages has been destroyed by Mueller's people.
Well, just to get the facts straight, Mr. Mayor, you said something I don't think you meant it. They recovered 19,000 texts from Strzok and Page.
They've also not been able to recover almost an equal number. And the ones
but how do they know how many they couldn't recover?
Well, they were assuming. Actually, it's between 9 and 19,000, if you want to be specific. And we don't have those. And those are the ones that he would be texting to Page. The one he was texting things like, we have to prevent him from being president. Right. We have to have an insurance policy if he becomes president.
Right.
He's a disreputable, sick, insane man.
Right. They did not like Trump.
No, they didn't like Trump. They hated Trump.
Hate's your word, but clearly
no.
Like
when you say that a man,
the Inspector General,
when
two
you
of
say
them
that a
said
man,
it didn't affect their work.
Well, maybe if we had these, texts, we would find out it did affect their work. Because we don't have the text when he was working for Mueller. Mueller's people erased them, even knowing that they had this history. Well, you tell me what they would think of us if we did that. They knew that Strzok and Page had texted these inappropriate things.
Yes, and they removed them from the team because of them.
And that's the reason they should have retained the text.
Well, why? They already took action against them, and they had no reason to question the animus the way you are right now.
Well, of course
not
they
at that time.
Of course they did. They read the text. The reason they were fired is because of his inappropriate texting.
Right.
Then you go erase the phone?
Well, that's their policy.
And you want me to accept that that was in good faith when you have a guy like Weissman?
But that's what the Inspector General said.
Well, the Inspector General actually didn't know at that point that these things had been removed.
No, but in the report,
Inspector
I just
General
had the
can be wrong too. He's not God, you know.
Well, I know you say that nobody is God. We all understand that. There's only one higher power. But what I'm saying, Mr. Mayor, is that they looked at it, they were concerned about it, and they revealed that there is a policy in place that when you surrender your phone, it is erased and given to somebody else.
Not if it's evidence of misconduct, you don't do that.
But they weren't looking at it that way, the way you are. They had already removed them.
Maybe they were so damn biased they weren't looking at it that way because they were involved in a witch hunt to get Trump from the very beginning. So today we find out in The Hill, John Solomon's article is devastating. I didn't see your report on that, Chris. That article says that from day one, we didn't know this yet, but from day one, they knew that the dossier was bought and paid for by Hillary Clinton and the DNC, $1.1 million, that it was a phony document.
They did not think it was a phony document.
Well, how about it put Cohen at places he wasn't? How about
it may have been wrong, but there were a lot of different memoranda in it that had different sourcing, and some of it was right, some of it wasn't.
There is not a single piece of that document that has been substantiated.
That's not true.
Strzok testified to that.
Strzok did not testify to that.
Lisa Page testified to that. She certainly did.
No,
she certainly did.
They were testifying, as I remember it, they were testifying on the idea that it was the sole premise of the investigation. You had nothing else. This is what your FISA application was. This is all you had. And they said that's not true.
Well, you know what it was? It was a completely fraudulent affidavit because the affidavit fails to mention that the dossier on which the case was based, at least in part, whether it's whole or in part,
matters.
That was a totally false statement. It did not say to the court that this was an research.
Well, that's not true also. There was a footnote
No,
about
the
where it was
footnote doesn't mention Hillary Clinton, doesn't mention the DNC. It says that a law firm,
right.
It says, quote, a law firm paid for this document.
As opposition research.
Doesn't say opposition.
Not in the footnote.
No, it doesn't. Chris, let's be truthful. Let's be truthful, Donna.
Always.
Come on now.
Always.
Let's stop all this false reporting.
What
Let's
false
stop
reporting?
it once
What
and
have
for
I
all.
said that's false?
What you said is that they revealed it. They did not reveal it. They revealed something false. They said it was paid for by a law firm. Not that it was political op-ed research. Not that Hillary Clinton provided money for it. Not that the DNC provided money for it. That would make it highly suspect to anyone.
No, they said that it was paid for to get opposition research on a political opponent.
No, they did not. No, they didn't. They said it was paid for by a law firm seeking information on Donald Trump. It did not say opposition research. Did not say it was paid for by Hillary Clinton. You don't think that's relevant, that it was paid for by Hillary Clinton?
I think it's relevant. That's why I'm having a discussion with you.
And they knew it at the time. They were briefed by Bruce Orr, who testified under oath. He's hardly a friend of Donald Trump's. Bruce Orr testified that he explained it to Andrew Weissman, one of Mueller's chief deputies, who has been cited for ethical misbehavior so often, it's disgraceful that he's working for the government and getting paid by the government. Should have been fired 10 years ago. When he screwed up the Enron case, when he screwed up the Arthur Anderson case, when he refused to provide documents exculpatory to people who were let out of jail.
I hear you on all this, and I get the questions. And you've made them before. You've made them clear on this show before.
I didn't know. I did not make them before.
No, this stuff about the dossier and it being bogus and paid for by Clinton is the basis of everything. That's been made many times on this show.
I did not know that they knew about that from day one. They lied about that. They concealed that. I did not know that the Strzok and Page texts have been eliminated.
What you do know is that the Inspector General looked at them, they had a chance to review the texts, and it was found by an independent body, actually two, who took a look at it, that they didn't believe there was animus that affected the work.
Well, that's totally ridiculous. When somebody says, I hate somebody, that's totally ridiculous. When somebody says, I hate that person, as a prosecutor, I'm not putting him in charge of that investigation.
I hear
that is sick.
Let's deal with the issues today.
Sick, totally biased statement.
The argument
has been made. You tell me you would like to be investigated by somebody who hates you?
I wouldn't want to be investigated by anybody, and it was the right move to remove them.
Do you think it's fair to have somebody investigating the President of the United States who has expressed opinions hating him? Only after he framed Flynn. Only after he started the investigation.
And the Inspector General said that work was not John.
Only after he submitted the false affidavit.
Look at the
he
yield.
had done tremendous damage by the time they did that. The amount of false reporting about this case is despicable.
Mr. Mayor, false reporting is saying that nobody in the campaign had any contacts with Russia. False reporting is saying that there has been no suggestion of any kind of collusion between the campaign and any Russians. Because now you have Paul Manafort giving poll data that winds up leading to this coincidence.
Well, you just misstated my position. I never said there was no collusion between the campaign or between people in the campaign.
Yes, you
have no idea if I have not. I said the President of the United States. There is not a single bit of evidence the President of the United States committed the only crime you could commit here, conspired with the Russians to hack the DNC.
First of all, crime is not the bar of accountability for a president. It's about what you knew, what was right and what was wrong, and what did you deceive about. Those are going to be major considerations.
The president did not.
He said nobody had any contact. Tons of people had contact. Nobody colluded. The guy running his campaign
he didn't say
was
nobody.
Working on an issue at the same time as the convention.
He said he didn't. He didn't say nobody. How would you know that nobody in your campaign?
He actually did say that, Rudy. He said nobody, and then he said, as far as I know.
He said it in a. Well, as far as he knows, that's true.
I don't know that it's true.
The president knows, and as far as I know.
How did Paul Manafort do all these things and nobody else knew?
He was only there for 6 months or 4 months.
He was there for the convention when they changed the platform.
Yeah, and he
gave the polling data, Cambridge Analytica. You don't have the same questions about them that you do about the dossier.
And they ended up, how about reporting this? And they ended up with a stronger platform on Ukraine than they started with by the time they were finished.
They wanted to put in there that we would give lethal help with lethal weaponry, and they changed it to soften it to say.
And they took it out, and then they put back in that they were going to give substantial help to Ukraine.
Right, but not the same.
Which was not in the Democratic platform, by the way.
It was softened. Who did it and why they did it, we don't yet know.
And the president had no knowledge of that. I happen to know that.
He didn't know about his own party's platform.
Chris, come on. You've been around politics to know candidates don't know a damn thing about the platform. They don't pay any attention to the platform.
I was raised by a guy who would have corrected the punctuation in the party platform.
Maybe was different, but I've been with a lot of presidents and a lot of presidential campaigns, and the platform they pay no attention to. They care about their acceptance speech. That's what they're spending their time on.
Fine,
they
but be that as it may, there are two
speeches
coincidences to answer for. The first one is Manafort is viable at the head of the campaign when that's going on. Then he's viable at the head of the campaign, giving polling data that winds up having the same faces and places targeted by the campaign that are targeted by Russian trolls. How is that not collusion?
It's not collusion.
How is it not?
Well, because polling data is given to everybody. I mean, you shouldn't have given it to them. It's wrong to give it to them.
It's not given to everybody.
And I can't speak for Paul Manafort. Of course it is. First of all, the most inappropriate, the most inaccurate stuff is internal polling data. All of it is cooked to make the candidate feel good.
They wound up coming to the same conclusions about whom to target and where. If you give people who are trying to interfere in an election information about where to target and whom, you don't see that as collusion.
Not with the President of the United States, not with Donald Trump. Donald Trump
at a
wasn't giving
minimum
polling
with his
data.
campaign, and the question becomes, what did the President know?
He and I didn't know about that until...
I'm not saying you did. I'm asking about the President.
He didn't. He did not know about it until it was revealed a few weeks ago in an article. I still haven't seen the testimony. I've seen the article, which is based on leaks.
Question.
So I don't know what was actually said, what was actually done.
Question.
At this point, I have no real solid knowledge anything like that was done. All I have is what was leaked to a newspaper, probably unethically leaked to the newspaper. Like that counterintelligence report was leaked to the newspaper. And the reporters never bothered to ask if they started a counterintelligence, if they started an investigation, a counterintelligence investigation, a year and a half ago, don't you think as a reporter you would ask, what was the conclusion of that investigation?
No, they handed it off to Mueller.
No, they didn't. You can't hand off a counterintelligence national security investigation to a prosecutor. Absolutely not. That means you found no. Chris, I worked for the Justice Department for 18 years.
I know you did. I'm not telling you don't know the protocols. I'm saying that was...
Let me explain.
Go ahead.
Let me explain to your audience the truth about that.
Please.
The truth about it is that if you're doing a counterintelligence investigation and you find any evidence of breach of national security, you got to follow up on it. You can't refer it to a prosecutor because you have to quickly report that to people in authority so that they can protect America against a national security breach. They found no such breach.
All right,
None.
Look, I take your opinion.
None.
I take your opinion on it.
The New York Times left the innuendo. The New York Times left the innuendo that they might have because they didn't report that investigation found nothing.
All right, and I take your opinion on that.
And that's the kind of stuff. That's the kind of stuff they're doing to this president.
All right, well, let's. I have two more questions, okay, and then I'll let you go. First one is that
I can stay all night.
Something I know, but I have to take commercials, and I don't want to hold you over a break. It's very weird to do that. So the idea of transparency, everybody should be on the same page.
Yes,
whatever does not compromise national security, and that should be a very tight definition, should be made public. All the findings that the people can see from Mueller. Do you agree?
I agree.
You have been quoted as saying you should get to go through it first. Is that a fair assessment of your position?
Of course I should. I should be allowed to respond.
Should you be able to change the report?
I've been misquoted about it also.
How so?
I said, because I don't want to change the report.
Okay.
I want to respond to the report.
Okay.
Wouldn't you want to respond to the report if it was about you? And don't you think it's fair that we get an opportunity to do that?
Absolutely.
So, I have no control over what Mueller's going to say. Let him say whatever he wants. I have no control over what's national security, what isn't. The government's got to decide that. As his lawyer, I'd honestly like you to see the whole report.
Me too.
Because I think Jay and I can knock the hell out of it.
Well, look,
because
and you should have that opportunity. I'm just saying nobody should change the report itself.
Of course not.
Before the people get to see it, and you agree with that on the record.
Of course, yeah, and to have one of those senators yesterday suggest that is totally ridiculous. First of all, they wouldn't let me change the report. Secondly, I've been a lawyer too long to think I'd ever do that. And third, I want them to write the garbage they're going to write because I want to answer it, unless they surprise me and they do a fair report, which I'm hoping to God they do.
Look, and you heard what Mr. Barr said yesterday, right, about Bob Mueller, right? He cannot imagine him doing anything that would justify removing him or improper conduct. Do you agree with that about Bob Mueller?
No, I would not say I can't imagine. I would say that the president has not removed him. And this whole idea of obstruction is really stupid because the investigation has come to an end and nobody's obstructed it.
I don't think the investigation's come to an end. Look how much was redacted in those Manafort papers.
If it hasn't come to an end, it's certainly come to an end on collusion. They either have it or they don't have it.
How do you know? We just learned the Manafort stuff, and it's the most damning stuff today.
That's not collusion and hacking the DNC.
But that's not the bar. Were you doing something inappropriate? No. Look at the mandate for the special counsel, Rudy. It doesn't say crimes. It says contact. It says coordination. It's not just crimes. The
Of
American
course they're
people, because the
investigating
bar
crime.
of proper
The
conduct in
Justice
government isn't a
Department-
felony.
The Justice Department doesn't do ethics investigations.
A special counsel can. It can be part of their mandate, and you know that. It's right
they're
in Section
doing
600.
a criminal investigation, and if it leading to impeachment, it has to be a high crime or misdemeanor.
That's true.
Not an unethical violation.
That is a political
Look, they have
standard.
gotten so beyond. They've gotten so beyond their scope that it's absurd.
How has he gotten beyond his
Ethics
scope?
and ethics. How has he gone beyond his scope?
Yeah.
At least four degrees of separation. He begins with collusion. He goes to a completely phony obstruction investigation, which Barr
How
has
is it
written.
phony with all of the things that the president has done with respect to this investigation?
Because
if you
he
were at
didn't
the
obstruct-
DOJ, Rudy, and you watched the president doing these kinds of conversations with Comey, asking people to leave, asking for loyalty,
Every right
asking
to
to
do
go
that.
easy on Flynn.
Every
and then
right
he
to do
says,
that.
then he brings in Rosenstein. They write up a memo about why he's got to go. The president says include Russia. He says no. He gets upset. They get rid of Comey. He then says it was about Russia. If you were hearing those kinds of things at the DOJ, you wouldn't say, what the hell is this guy doing?
And
Why
then
is he doing all this?
Then I would calm down, I'd read the law, and I'd find out that Article 2 of the Constitution of the United States, which I took an oath to uphold, which apparently Mueller's people have forgotten, gives the president the authority to fire people.
Not for any reason.
Well, for any reason, but a criminal reason. It'd have to be like something like, obstruction is not based on something like, oh, please go easy on Flynn, which he never said, by the way. He disputes saying that, but let's just say he said it.
But Mr.
I
Mr.
did
Mayor, how
obstruction
can
cases.
we take his word
Here's what obstruction
as
cases are.
dispositive
Well,
on
let's
the
say he
issue?
said it. Let's say he said,
Okay.
please, Mr. Comey, go easy on the poor general. Look, when I was a prosecutor, that must have happened at least 100 times. It is not obstruction.
Not by somebody who could take you out.
Oh, absolutely.
Who?
Absolutely. I'm not going to tell you who. They're all privileged conversations. But the fact is, obstruction is something like this. Every case I ever saw, I'm going to break your legs. I'm going to take your money away. I'm going to hurt your family. That's what obstruction is. It isn't giving your opinion when
Rudy,
you're the boss.
I hear you about the basic law, but again, adding to the circumstances. He keeps meeting with Putin. He takes the interpreter's notes. He
Who?
won't talk to
He met with Putin twice.
The president. No, he's met with him several times, and their
Well, no, had two
conversations.
real meetings with him. The summit meeting was the only real big meeting.
But he's on the phone with him. He's meeting
Not
with
really.
him.
Not really. He's not on the phone with
But
Putin.
several times where he hasn't talked to his staff about what happened. He took an interpreter's notes. They don't want to impart what was in the
Well,
conversation.
that's up to the president. I mean, president has to conduct our business with some degree of confidentiality. You can't take notes on everything.
In this context, the interpreter takes notes and you say, give me those? Don't talk to anybody about this?
If the collusion happened, it happened a long time ago. It's either provable or it's not. It is not provable because it never happened.
What do you mean if it happened? I thought you used to say there was absolutely no chance it happened.
I'm telling you there's no chance it happened with the president.
How do you
of the United
explain
States.
Manafort? But it's his
I
campaign,
have
Rudy.
no
Doesn't that matter?
idea. I have no idea, never have, what other people were doing.
But he ran his campaign. It's not like the guy who he met at the shoe shine shop.
He also may have had an agenda of his own. Didn't these guys owe him a lot of money?
But
that he
who
gave the
else
polling
knew what he
manager?
was doing? He didn't change a party platform by himself. He didn't get
change the
polling
party
data by
platform.
himself.
By the way, Manafort wasn't involved in that either, by the way. Go talk to the people who were
What a
involved in that.
coincidence. They changed the party platform in the same way that the Russians wanted.
Well, whatever. The president didn't know about it. It was changed back to a very acceptable position,
was
a stronger
softened.
position than present government policy. Absolutely not. Much stronger than the Obama
And now they're
position.
trying to relieve
And Trump
sanctions
has
on one
been
of the guys
harder-
who are being looked at in the probe.
And Trump has been harder with sanctions on Russia than Obama was.
Congress forced his hand, and now they're trying to relieve sanctions on one of the guys
Congress
that Mueller's
did not
looking at.
force his hand.
Why would you do that?
He recommended the sanctions originally. And by the way, you can't let foreign policy and the conduct of foreign policy get hobbled by this unfair witch hunt. I mean, that's one of the reasons that this should come to a conclusion. And don't you think it'd be fair, whether you think he's concluded or not, that Mueller finally be asked, show us what you got, put up or shut up? You and your witch hunt guys.
But he's never denied us that access. It concludes, he puts out the report, and then we see what it has.
Well, let's get it now.
I've always seen this as a false argument, the idea of he's not showing us what he has.
Well,
it's not over.
Well, let's do it.
But he's got to finish.
It's over enough. We've answered all his questions on collusion. How much longer are you going to let him do this?
He just put out that your campaign chairman was playing with the Russians.
But we don't. That isn't what he's. We don't need a special counsel to investigate a campaign chairman. We have him because the President of the United States is involved.
You do when
as
the
a
President of the
subject.
United States seems
So
to be
let him,
a little
let him,
hyperactive about the probe, and it may not be fair. And the guy who was at the head of the AG at the time
I'm
was his
hyperactive about
campaign
the
guy.
probe because I think it's the most inappropriate investigation I've ever seen, conducted on an ethical level that's disgusting, and allowed to do so because you have a compliant press that loves the idea that Manafort's house was invaded, that Manafort's in solitary confinement.
I don't love any of that. I
Well,
just
a
want
lot
the
of them
truth.
do. They don't. Who complains about the man being in solitary confinement? God, if he was a terrorist, they'd complain about it.
You shouldn't have messed with the witnesses, Rudy.
unbelievable.
You were harsh with
This is
people
a
who messed with you
white-collar
that way when
case.
you were a
He
prosecutor.
didn't threaten
You
to
weren't
kill
nice
anybody.
to perps. You know,
I don't think I've
put
ever
guys
put a
in cuffs
white
and
collar
marching
guy.
by in white collar crime.
I sure did, and they went
right.
to jail for 3 years or 4
All
years.
right,
I didn't
so
put
you
them in
could be tough,
solitary
too, when
confinement.
guys messed with you. That's
I
what's
did
going
not
on here.
put them in solitary confinement the way Manafort
You would
has
if you
been
wanted
in
to keep them
for
from
4
communicating with people, if they were tampering.
I would tape record them if I wanted to keep them from communicating. And by the way, in prison, everything is tape recorded. Every phone call is tape recorded.
Still
The
managed
conversations,
to do it.
Except with your lawyer.
All right.
He didn't do it. No, he didn't do it while he was in prison. He did it when he was outside. That's why they put him in prison, even though they could have
That's
taped
true.
him. They could have put a monitor on him. That's what's usually done by fair prosecutors, not by Andrew Weissman, who several times has been caught doing this to other people and been upbraided by courts. And Mueller went and hired him, an act of supreme bad judgment.
The prosecutors are not bad guys when you're looking at the context
Go
of
look
Paul
at
Manafort
Weissman's
and what he
record,
did.
my friend.
But look, to me,
Go
I want
look
to,
at-
but Rudy,
if-
I always want to stick with the facts in front of my face in these
described as the
circumstances. I don't
pit
judge
bull, the
people by their
hitman.
past. It's what you did here. It's what's going on here. But I
What's
appreciate
going on here is an investigation that should be reported on now. It's gone far enough. Let's see if he's got anything. I challenge him to show us some evidence that the president was involved in anything approaching criminal conduct. No. So end of view. You want to do an ethics investigation? Fine. Do an ethics investigation. But you don't need a special prosecutor for that.
I hear what you're saying. Your arguments are on the record and before the audience. And Rudy Giuliani, I appreciate you taking the time
Thank you,
and
Chris.
laying it out. This is very helpful to
Thank
the
you, sir.
audience. God bless
Thank
and be
you.
well.
And thank you for the opportunity.
All right. Rudy Giuliani, ladies and gentlemen. So that is one big story, and it's a big mess, right? There's another big story, and it's a big mess. The farcical solution of a wall that has led us to a shutdown. Now, we hear that the economy may suffer as much as the wall may cost if the president gets his way. Is that a right thing? Why didn't he take the Democrats' offer last year? He would have had his wall, and we would have had a lot more. Should he consider Nancy Pelosi's proposal now to postpone the State of the Union because of the shutdown? Key questions, great debate. Next.
One-on-one.
And fairly transparent, actually. I think it makes Democrats look afraid of Donald Trump, and you know, I'm loath to say that, but frankly, I think it's pretty irresponsible of the Speaker to say that Secret Service and Capitol Police cannot adequately secure the Capitol for a night. I think that's not in evidence, and I think it's kind of a gross allegation to cast, and she doesn't need to do that. It's unnecessary. They're winning. Don't get gross.
So, Steve, what about the God forbid scenario? Let's not go through what could happen, but what happens if you have it and something does happen and you didn't have the kind of security you usually would?
Well, look, I don't want to get into those hypotheticals.
Me either,
What
but
we
I'm
know-
saying that's the good reason why she would be
Okay,
doing this.
but-
The bad
okay,
reason
but
is what
here's-
SE says, it's a power play.
Right. But here's why we know she's being really brazenly political is because DHS Secretary Nielsen told us, look, we can fully secure this the way we always do. So of course our government can do that. I mean, come on, Chris, this is the United States. Of course we can provide security. Now, nothing's ever fail-safe, but we can provide security. What this is about is the Speaker of the House saying that we want to silence the debate. We don't want to give you the platform that you've earned as President of the United States in the State of the Union, while yes.
Well, you don't earn it, you get
technically it's-
invited, right? It's up to them to invite you.
But hold on. But Chris, you know very well that this has become part of the
Absolutely
pageantry
a
of our
tradition.
democracy.
100%.
It is a ritual of the United States that is
concede the
very
point.
important, whether it's President Obama or President Trump. And
I
he
concede
earned
the
that
point.
right. And my point to the White House is this. If they want to be that petty, and if they want to try to shut you down, go to the Senate chamber and do it there. Let's do the State of the Union there. And by the way, Nancy Pelosi, not invited over there. But my hope would be that she can be bigger than that and say that we're about more than resistance. We're about more than obstruction. Let's have a conversation. They get to have a reply, as they did the other night from his Oval Office speech. They can reply after.
Look,
That's true. And look, SC, to your point, why do anything to jeopardize the fact that this shutdown is owned by the president? He said it on national television. The price is getting worse and worse. They had already offered him $25 billion over a number of years for the stuff that he wants. He walked away from the deal. They're in decent position in terms of don't put it on us.
Yeah, it's unnecessary. Public polling blames the president. That might not always be the case if you look back at the 2013 shutdown.
And when you look intra-party, if you look at the right, he's still doing okay. The right largely believes in this fight. It gets very close about whether a wall is everything, but he's not getting hurt there the way he is overall.
No, that's true. And what I was going to say is in 2013, if you look at that shutdown, the immediate polling blamed the GOP, but that bled pretty quickly over into Democrats and Congress in general. People just get sick of a game of chicken, and they end up sort of blaming everyone. Democrats, in fact, had their then record high unfavorable rating of 49% right after that 2013 shutdown. So this could bleed into Democratic bad polling. But right now, they hold all the cards and the American people are on their side of it. It seems, to use Steve's word, petty, but also a real unforced error. I just think most people can see through this. And again, it makes Democrats look scared of Trump having a big platform on a big night and a lot of people tuning in.
Right. So, Steve, what do you think? Do you think there is any chance that maybe seeing the Coast Guard and the reaction to that, you know, you're saying you shut down the government because you want to have a fight about keeping us safe, and now the people who are keeping us safe aren't getting paid. Do you think that as time goes on, it becomes more attractive to the president to say, look, I'm going to reopen the government, and then figure out some kind of deal? He says he's the best deal maker we've ever had as president.
Right. Look, I'll be the first to tell you that, yes, that it's a terrible optic, obviously, to have people who risk their lives for our country in the Coast Guard not getting paid, because, of course, they should be. I'll tell you this. I think the president is willing to negotiate. Certainly all the reporting says that he's willing to come off of his $5.7 billion number. Who's not willing to negotiate? Speaker Pelosi. She said $1. I mean, how insulting to the American people.
They've given over $1 billion, and that goes to physical barriers
but
and other security.
she said $1 for the wall. That's where she stands now.
But if we held our
they
leaders
off of
to that standard, you would be explaining what the president means all the time on this show. You brush aside his words all the time. They have they have over $1.3 billion that goes to the deal. It's just not as much as he wants. That's all, which is a legitimate political fight.
Here's the deal that I think makes tremendous sense is the wall for DACA, a clean one-for-one, not the kind of grand immigration reform that was attempted before, but a clean one-for-one, full wall funding that he requests right now for protection for DACA. Even if the Democrats hate the wall, I would hope that they love these DACA young adults more than they hate Trump, and that they're willing to give them protection more than they're unwilling to give the president a political win. It's a true compromise that neither side loves, which is the definition of a compromise, but where America wins.
Well, as Adam Kinzinger says, in situations where both sides hate what they did, the American people usually love it. Let's see if we can get that outcome here. It'd be good for the people to win for a change. SC, what a welcome addition. Steve Cortez, thank you as always.
Thanks.
All right, 4 weeks ago, the president declared victory over ISIS in Syria. Now, we've seen this mission accomplished movie before, and it had a deadly ending. And here we are again. Today, 4 Americans were killed by a suspected ISIS attack in Syria. Now, is that proof that we should go or that we must stay? A man who knows the reality on the ground and the politics has a provocative take that the president is going to want to hear. Next. Tough issue right now, the shutdown. You believe the shutdown is a mistake, that that's not the way to leverage a negotiation. The president disagrees. What do you say?
This is a government of the most powerful country in the world that's shut down. Now, look, there's enough criticism in my mind to go to both sides of this debate. I think there's an easy way to compromise on immigration, and I think 80% of Americans would be happy if we did it and happy with the bill. But we've gotten into this stupid point in politics where everybody thinks that the only way you can win is if the other side completely loses. And that's where we're at. We're not budging. The reality is we have to get back to saying there can be win-wins. I don't care if you call them lose-loses. But what I've learned is whenever Republicans and Democrats actually can put their differences aside and get something that maybe nobody likes, the American people typically really like it. This is an embarrassment. Our inability to have this debate is an embarrassment, frankly, around the world that looks at us as this model democracy. And this is on all of us. And I would say to your viewers, they have to demand more of their politicians, too. Compromise is not a dirty word. We can get to where we all have something in this we like, but it means putting our pride aside for a bit.
How many Republicans think as you do?
I don't know. I think a good number, maybe. I think a good number of Democrats think like I do. But we're kind of hostage to this, I don't know, I don't want to call them necessarily the extremes, but this viewpoint that you can never compromise. And guess what? If you can never compromise, we're going to be stuck in this. And there's a lot of innocent people not getting their paychecks.
Do you think that Republicans like you can get the president to make a move, that on the Senate side, they can get Mitch McConnell to put something on the floor so the men and women there can be held accountable for what they want?
I hope so. I think it's going to be something that probably ultimately comes out of the Senate. And I have to be fair in hitting my Democratic colleagues, too. To say that the starting position is absolutely we will never do anything that has to do with a wall. The president has never said that, unlike DACA, for instance, and Dreamers. So I think there's an opportunity if we all can say, both sides can declare victory. It doesn't matter. But if we can say some money here, let's fix the DACA situation, which we all want to do, Americans would actually look out here and go, okay, well, that was a stupid 30-day shutdown, but at least we got something good out of it.
Our Congressman, thank you very much for joining us tonight, and thank you for your service to the country.
You bet. Take care.
And credit's where it's due. I mean, it's good to have a Republican congressman or any congressman saying, hey, let's both be a little disappointed. Let's figure something out. Fine. But facts first. Democrats have a little bit of a mixed message here, but here's what we understand. They have offered money, and a lot more than $1 for border security. Right now, the number's at about $1.3 billion, including more bollard fencing, which is what we call the wall. Now, it's just a fraction of the $5 billion that the president is asking for, but it's not nothing. Now, part of this is on the Dems, not because they did the shutdown. This was the president's doing. He told you all on national television. But they do keep saying they don't want to fund the wall. In fact, you heard Senator Schumer say exactly that it will never pass in the Senate. He'll never get the money for his wall. They're talking about the amount, not the wall at all. It is a messy answer, fair point, and it's a messy situation. The end the shutdown movement should be the reality for everybody. Next, if the president has a rallying cry about the Russia probe, it's no collusion.